If you're like most people, the start of a new year can serve as a really great opportunity to pause, take a deep breath, and reflect on not only what the last year has looked like, but also just think about maybe what you want the next year to look like.
So today we are giving you some structure to begin thinking about how you might approach the start of the new year as both a photographer and a business owner.
But before we jump into that, we want to introduce ourselves.
I'm Hunter.
And I'm Sarah.
And we're Hunter and Sarah Photography, a husband and wife professional wedding photography team.
We're also educators, and our goal is to help photographers to build strong foundations in both their personal lives and their businesses so that they can run profitable and sustainable photography businesses.
Now, if you're a fan of our channel, then you are probably aware that just a few weeks ago we started a new series all about shooting in manual and really just about learning the basics of aperture, shutter speed, and ISO. But we are pausing that series briefly this week in honor of this being our final video of 2022.
And for starters, we just want to say thank you. Thank you to the 600 plus new YouTube subscribers who have joined us on this journey in 2022, for the 24,000 video views and 46,000 blog views that you guys have given our content this year as we strove to help photographers to build profitable and sustainable photography businesses.
So as a thank you, we are switching gears a bit this week and covering some of the content that we typically reserve for our paid coaching students during their last meeting of the year. Now, we obviously are not going to do a full hour-long self-analysis that we typically go over with them, but we are going to ask 5 questions that are going to give you some structure at the beginning of a new year, or really the beginning of any new season of your life or business, that can help give you some direction moving forward. So let's jump right in.
Question number 1, am I happy with where my business is? This question is intentionally vague and also extremely broad. In all likelihood, there will be some areas of your business that you are happy with and some that you're maybe less satisfied with.
So for example, maybe you are just absolutely thrilled with how your photography has grown this past year and you've really nailed your editing style, but maybe your website and your social media don't really reflect that. And so those are areas that you might want to improve on.
Or maybe after watching our Pricing for Photographers workshop earlier this year, you finally feel so confident in how you've priced yourself, but you just know that your marketing could use some work because you're just not putting yourself out there enough.
Or maybe you are really feeling great about how much you're booking and how much you're charging, but you just need to get organized and get a workflow in place so that you can actually keep on top of all this growth that you're experiencing as a business.
No matter what, make sure that you write down at least three areas in your business that you are happy with, that are worth celebrating, and celebrate those.
Then try and think of at least 1, but no more than 3 areas of your business where you're maybe not quite as excited about and where you could focus on as an area of growth this coming year.
Question number 2 is, what is my number 1 goal for the next 12 months?
So now that you've identified those sort of 1, maybe 2 or 3 areas of your business where you do desire some growth, let's really narrow in on at least 1 of these areas. It's, of course, helpful to reflect and say, oh, it's my shooting or my editing or my workflow that I really want to improve this upcoming year. But get better at editing is really broad, really general, and honestly not a very effective goal to give you as a sort of big goal for an entire year.
Yeah, so just in case you have never heard of SMART goals, we're just going to really briefly introduce you to them. We find that in business and sometimes even in our personal lives, setting SMART SMART goals can help you actually achieve more of what you desire.
So the S is for specific. So don't just set your goal as something like, oh, I want to be a better photographer, but instead say, oh, I want to improve my composition when it comes to portrait sessions, right? You want to get specific.
The M is for measurable. Spend more time doing what I love isn't something that you can easily measure, but reduce my editing time from 8 hours to 6 hours per wedding is obviously something that you can actually measure.
The A is for achievable. So this means that when you sit down a year from now and look back on your goals for this upcoming year, that you can answer with a very simple yes or no question, did you accomplish your goal, right? And so if you set something vague and sort of nebulous like edit better or be happier, it might be kind of hard to look back over the course of a year and be like, did I even achieve that? But establishing an editing style that I used for every job this year, that is something that is actually achievable. I can look back and say, yes, I did that, or no, I didn't.
The R is for realistic. If you made $5,000 this year, making $10,000 next year is an ambitious but realistic goal. However, if you made $5,000 this year, setting a goal to make $100,000 next year is probably just setting yourself up for failure and disappointment.
And finally, the T is for time-based or timely. So your goals should be focused on the next year, the next 6 months, or maybe once each month for the next 12 months, right? Don't set a goal like, one day I want to do this, because it's really hard to achieve goals that don't have an end date.
Yeah. So with all of that in mind, what is a goal that you can set for your business that is smart? And in that same category of improvement that you identified with in question number 1. This is your big goal for next year.
And question number 3 is also related to that big goal, which is, what can I do each month to work towards that big goal? So with questions 1 and 2, you now have a goal that is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time-based. And it's rooted in one of those 3 areas that you identified as sort of the biggest need for growth in your business. And now we're going to take that big goal you have for this coming year and let's chop it up into 12 smaller pieces.
Let's use a financial goal as the first example. If you set your goal next year to make $25,000, let's break that down. If you average $1,500 for a wedding coverage and maybe $250 for a portrait session, that $25,000 could be broken down into 16 weddings or 4 portrait sessions. Or
16 weddings and 4 portrait sessions.
Yeah.
Yes. 4 portrait sessions will probably not make you 25 grand.
Probably not, unless you're
really
heckin' good.
Yeah.
Or it could be 12 weddings and 28 portrait sessions. So if we used kind of that latter as our example and divided that by 12 months, that comes out to 1 wedding and 2 engagement sessions each month during the year. So making $25,000 can sound like a really scary goal, but shooting 1 wedding and 2 portrait sessions each month makes that sound a lot less terrifying.
So let's use another example that isn't actually financially based. Let's say that your big goal for next year was to improve your workflow and your editing so that you can edit a wedding in 25% less time, right? Maybe you go from 8 hours to only 6 hours per wedding. Let's say, now how would we break that down into 12 smaller goals, right? Maybe January, your goal is to watch some YouTube videos and sort of figure out what's going to be the best editing software for you. By the way, we have one. And maybe in February, then you're going to download and purchase those programs and familiarize yourself with them. And then in March, you want to maybe re-edit some old galleries to sort of start to get the hang of it. And then in April, you're going to purchase a small course to, really get you good at it. And then in May, you start working it into your workflow, right? You get the idea, right? This whole example is just to show that just because something isn't financial, it doesn't maybe, a little bit of money each month, you can still break down big overarching year-long goals into smaller segments, which are going to make them feel that much more achievable.
And of course, if the goal that you set was kind of relatively modest, you can set 2 or 3 kind of big goals to focus on for next year. But be warned, if you set too many goals, you will quickly get overwhelmed and not achieve any of them. So one big goal that you work toward tirelessly and then achieve is just so much better than 5 medium-sized goals that overwhelm you and force you to give up in just a few months or a few days.
So question number 4, we're going to switch gears a little bit. Am I taking care of myself? Now, we could do an entire multi-hour workshop, much less a whole video, just about healthy boundaries and taking care of yourself when you are both a person running a business and a person, right? Being both a business owner and an actual human. This is really where the whole sustainable part of our profitable and sustainable motto really comes in.
Yeah, and we will probably have more videos on these ideas sometime next year. We do want to touch on this kind of briefly in today's video because this is something that's just really important.
Especially at the start of a new year. So if you are not taking care of yourself in order to grow your business, you are setting yourself up for failure in the long run. And some people just really need to hear that, right? Of course, there are going to be seasons where your business grows maybe a bit faster than you can keep up with, and you got to just sort of buckle down and get through those crazy seasons, but that should not be the norm forever, right? We're wedding photographers, so for us, where we live, the spring and the fall are typically a little bit crazy, and sometimes when we have a really busy fall, unsustainably so, but even in those seasons, we still take 1 day off each week, every week, in order to protect our mental health.
Plus, those busy seasons are often punctuated by slower summers and really slow winters. The only reason that we can shoot 6 weddings a month for multiple months in a row is because we know that there is a light at the end of that tunnel and a season of rest that follows it.
If we had to shoot at that pace for an entire year or for multiple years without breaks, we'd eventually just burn out and our entire business would suffer. And that's just one example from our life, right? For you, what leads you towards burnout or what may lead you towards burnout could be something completely different, but it's really important to identify that and potentially to prepare for it.
Yeah. So as you are considering the question, am I taking care of myself? Here are a few sub-questions to help you kind of figure out how to answer that question. Am I sleeping enough? Am I getting a healthy amount of exercise? Am I eating in a way that sets me up for success daily and in the long run? Am I spending time with the people who are most important to me? Am I being poured into with life-giving relationships? Am I part of a community that knows and cares for me? How has my mental health been? Have I been experiencing sadness or loneliness or anxiety lately in a way that maybe isn't normal for me?
And you don't need to have a positive answer to 100% of these questions 100% of the time in order to be taking care of yourself. But if you're finding that most of these questions you're answering negatively, or some of these questions you're answering negatively all year long, then maybe your goal next year shouldn't necessarily be about growing your business so much as taking care of yourself. Maybe this means finding a counselor or another mental health professional who can really coach you and help you towards a better place emotionally, mentally, physically.
Yeah. But if it's just about sheer workload, you need to find a way to still be profitable, but also potentially scale back on some of your workload by maybe like outsourcing, automating, eliminating, or just turning down the volume of your work even during your busy season.
Because at the end of the day, a healthy business run by an unhealthy business owner is not actually a healthy business.
Yeah. Finally, question number 5, what can I do to give back in the coming year?
Over the years, one of the coolest things that Sarah and I have found about running small businesses is all of the opportunities that our businesses have given us to give back to causes that are important to us.
Yeah, and this has looked different at different stages in our business. While we were still doing photography for fun and mostly just building our portfolio, we would say yes to basically anyone who asked us to shoot, which was often people or causes who couldn't afford to hire a professional. And that's how we ended up shooting some like 60th birthday parties or some church fundraisers.
But as our business grew over time, our time actually became more scarce to us than the money. So we committed to giving away 10% of the profits from our business every year to charities that we care about. But we'll still occasionally photograph an event or even a wedding at a reduced rate if it's for a cause that we really care about, or if doing the job is really gonna like nourish our souls and make us feel really good. And honestly, that's one of the beauties about running your own photography business is if you decide that, oh man, this couple could really use the win of reduced rate wedding photography, or man, this charity would really benefit from new photography, especially in your slow season, then you can kind of just give it to them. And for the most part, all it really costs you is your time.
Yeah. But if you've never done anything like this before, we would encourage you right now to consider what kind of impact you can have in the coming year. Whether it's giving away, one wedding at a reduced rate for a couple who could really use it, or a charity that you'll partner with financially, or even with just free photos.
Because either way, it'll probably be good for you, and it might even be good for your business too.
But that is it for this week and this year.
Guys, thank you so much for watching. Our hope is that this video and every video we've put out this year has really helped you build a profitable and sustainable photography business.
Yes, and if you haven't already, we would really encourage you to join our free Facebook community, Mastering the Wedding Photography Biz with Hunter and Sarah. In that group, we are building a free community of other photographers who are building their photography businesses and helping each other out along the way.
Now, next week, we are going to jump back into our series about shooting with manual and start talking about shutter speed. So be sure to like and subscribe so that you don't miss a thing.
And if you found this video helpful, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to add anything that you feel like we missed, feel free to comment below.
That's it, guys. See you next week, and Happy New Year.